Good afternoon, all. We are back again for another wonderful Wellness Wednesday. So, I am Tedra Parkins from Odyssey Family Counseling Center, the Child and Adolescent Coordinator. And we also have Elise Payne here, our school-based mental health program coordinator. And we have an amazing guest today. And so we will definitely introduce you to her shortly because we want to give you all the great details about her. But first, we all want to let you know that we are here again in October, and this month we are discussing ideas and things that are very helpful for teachers. This month, October, is all about our teachers and how we can help self-care, any tools and techniques. So teachers, this month is for you. And next month, in November, we will talk about students. Students, get ready because we have some amazing speakers that will be discussing additional tools and techniques specifically for you. Again, we would like to let you all know that the South Fulton Mental Health Collaborative is in collaboration with Fulton County Schools and the South Fulton Parent Initiative. They definitely wanted to make sure that we had something for the community that was helpful and to incorporate whole health and wellness. So please, please, please continue to join in, continue to share our page. We are on Instagram, Facebook. We also now have launched our YouTube channel with South Fulton Mental Health Collaborative. So please continue to join in, to comment, and get ready for the great things that we continue to have in store. So without any further ado, Elise, please introduce our great speaker that we have for today.
I will be happy to do that. Thanks, Tedra, for all the updates. I want to also just remind people to comment during this video so that we can have some really good discussion with the wonderful Erica Wortherly. So I have the honor of introducing her today. We've gotten to know her, talk with her, and I'm really excited for you all to hear about the amazing things that she can share, not only from her own life, but from her experiences that are really diverse and amazing. So let me get into this. Erica Wortherly is a licensed clinical social worker who specializes in working with educators and parents, pay attention, parents too, to improve their understanding of mental health. She earned her BA in communications from the University of North Florida, and she earned her master's in social work from Florida State University. My mom is a Seminole, so we'll say go Noles. Speaks on topics including self-care practices, mental health awareness, becoming trauma sensitive, and more. So she's in the right place. That's what we talk about here on the South Fulton Mental Health Collaborative. As a former teacher in Duval County Public Schools in Jacksonville, school-based clinical counselor for Children's Home Society of North Florida, and social worker, she will always be an educator. She has written 2 children's books addressing anger and grief. They are I Scream Because I'm Angry and Dear Everybody, Admit There's Hurt. They're used as tools for engaging and challenging conversations with children. This stuff isn't easy for anyone to talk about, and that's why we've got to open it up and be honest with each other and use these great tools that people have created to do these things. Through her private practice and teaching with mental health in mind, Erica advocates for shifting mindsets to create more flexible, empathetic, and comfortable environments for children and the adults who care for them to thrive. So guys, that's an amazing bio. That is an amazing place to start this conversation with Erica. So welcome to the South Fulton Mental Health Collaborative.
Thank you so much for being here as well.
Thank you. I appreciated the invitation. These are topics that I love being a part of. I love being a part of the conversation because I think that they're really important. And although the conversations are happening more frequently, it's not enough. I do want to add one thing, and this is the third one came out fairly recently. It's called But What If, and it addresses anxiety. And I just felt like this was the right time to have that book published, because with everything going on, it just is.
Guys, just give us 1 second. You know how it is with the pandemic. We have little technical difficulties.
really important to help children, but also the adults understand what anxiety is, what it may feel and look like, and then different ways to cope with it. So just wanted to add that little piece.
Thank you so much. So, Erica, when is your book going to be published?
It's already out.
Okay.
They're available on my website, which is ericanwortherly.com/products. So
Great.
if you go to my website, you'll be able to find all 3 books. And then it's also available on the popular online stores. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million. You can search it and find it.
Great. That is amazing. Thank you so much. And that's great that you have like 3 books out now. It's great that you spoke about anxiety, because we have so much of so many people that have anxiety in our community, but just in the world, and we don't often address it. We take it and we say, "Oh, I'm nervous," or "I feel something." And so it's great that you have a book out that really addresses that.
Yeah, and I have, everyone experiences anxiety, just like everybody experiences grief. Everyone experiences anger, but it's one thing that we need to talk about again more often is normalizing it, but also recognizing that the way we experience it is not going to be the way someone else experiences it.
Exactly.
And when I was doing school-based counseling, the first time, the 3 topics that I chose to write about were the topics that came up most often, especially when working with kids. And I had difficulty finding books that I felt like I could use to add that as a sign to take the initiative and go things that I was saying to the kids, to the teacher, for everyone to understand. And then also a way that the books could be used as a communication tool. So it's not one of those books that you just hand to a child and say, "Hey, go read this because you have anger issues." No, let's sit down and read this together and have a conversation about it.
That's amazing. So you've created tools that bring adults and kids together to have these conversations, and it does it through story and engaging them. So we talked about previously, when we met together, about your story. So what is your story that brings you to having this knowledge and being able to speak and advocate and create these tools?
Well, it starts approximately almost 27 years ago now. Well, I tell people, before everything else, I was a mom. My whole adult life, I've been a mother. My oldest son was born when I was 19, and then each of my children are a year apart. So I had to learn quite early how to take care of myself, how to keep my children alive, make sure that they were well taken care of, and that I created an environment that was comfortable for them to be able to thrive in, make sure that they knew that they were loved, make sure that we had as open communication as possible. I had them all while I was in undergrad. I was determined to finish school. So between semesters, I had kids. So I graduated from college with 3 children, had been married and divorced. So over the course of seemed like it was short and really long at the same time, 5 years. There was a lot that happened and a lot of changes that occurred really quickly. And I had to figure out ways to find my balance and be able to balance school and motherhood and being myself, and understanding how to be a mother, and trying to get the right support, have the right relationships in my life. So it was such a combination that I had to figure out at a pretty young age, but I've been able to carry those things over throughout my career.
Yeah, I think that starting place that you've shared as a mother, that experience and that identity is so important to inform the work you do, because you know it from all these different angles, which is what experience is so amazing, because you really survived and were thriving amidst a lot of challenges. I mean, those are all challenging. There, I'm sure the kids are amazing, and you are, I can tell, so proud of your role as a mom, but it's still a huge challenge to have all that going on and getting your degree and trying to be a teacher and educator after you get your degree as well. So that,
Right.
how do you see all of these pieces interacting? You know, now you're, what you said, 27 years past that point. So, you know, how do you see that journey? How has it led you to where you are today?
Well, I started teaching when my children were in 8th, ninth, and 10th grade. And I came in with those skills as a mom. So even though I had subbed for a while, my interaction with kids was based on that. And so my interactions were a little bit different from other teachers. And then that same year I started teaching, I also started my master's program in social work. I believe once I started that program, it just confirmed that I've been a social worker at heart my whole life. And again, that added a whole nother layer where I was able to have a different lens of the kids that I was serving as an educator. So as a mom, as an educator, as a social worker, that combination really has put me where I am. And to the point where at the end of the first year, because I don't know how schools are where you are, but here is basically if they have to make any cuts, it's the last one in is the last one, or is the first one out.
Yes.
So I was in position that first year teaching where I was told, we don't know if we're going to have a job for you next year.
Mm-hmm.
The last day of post planning, the principal called me in his office and he said, we want to keep you here. And I have a position for you that'll be different. My first year, I was a language arts teacher. He said, I don't know any other way to word this, but to do this particular job, we need your. So for the next 2 years of my team toward getting double promoted there with grade recovery for the years that they did not pass or the classes that they didn't pass. But he said, I like the way that you interact with the students and you do it in a way that's comforting to them. And it's not like putting pressure on them and causing them to stress out or punishing them and causing them to get up. So I took that as a major compliment. The fact that he was like, we need those mothering skills in the.
Yes. So, Erica, with that, what do you think were some of the techniques that you used from all of the different avenues that you had? You had the avenue of being a mother, a social worker, a teacher. What did you use that was so helpful for the students that other teachers could do? Because you have other teachers that have similar paths or have to where they're juggling work, home, school. And so what are some things that you use that you implemented in the classroom that help your students, but also help yourself too? Because I could imagine some of those techniques were helping you as a teacher and to maintain self-care and to maintain being grounded in the moment, because work is not always the easiest. It is sometimes hard.
Right.
So what were the things that you use that your principal noticed that, wow, you're doing something that's very different? What were those things that you used in the while you were teaching students?
One of the major things is taking the time to listen to the students. Mm-hmm. Even in that first year when I was teaching a core subject, I would have one-on-one conversations as often as possible with my students to get to know them better. Mm-hmm. And to be able to understand them better. I wanted to be involved and active in the meetings that were had. So if they had an IEP or a 504 or meeting with the guidance counselors, I was genuinely interested in what was going on with the student beyond how they were scoring on the assessments. Mm-hmm. So, if I had a student that was sleeping in my class all the time, I would ask questions about it versus punishing them for sleeping in class all the time. Or like, I remember that first year I had a student who was absent at least one day a week. And the kids I mean, the other teachers were, criticized. Like, no, but I need to know why. I'm a big why person. I'm like, there's always something behind the behavior. What
Yes.
is it? And it turned out that she was babysitting her younger siblings when she was out those days because her mom didn't have anyone to keep the kids. So I worked with her. I negotiated with her. I gave her assignments that I knew she could complete on the days that she was there. So I was willing to make that compromise with her in order to make sure not only she got the information that she needed to be successful, but then giving her the flexibility to get it done in her timing. And she was able to do it and she was able to pass, but also having those conversations with the other teachers, because I did listen, I was able to share with them, hey, this child has something going on. Let's work with them. Let's be flexible, and just kind of reminding them of that as well. I think those conversations with colleagues is so imperative when it comes to understanding the kids, because let's face it, many educators can be absolutely right. That additional information helps them to pull back a little bit and gain some understanding and being flexible. And so, those are a couple of the main thing I would say as a teacher is find the time to listen. Or I was a language arts teacher, so we did a lot of writing assignments. That's where I would get a lot of my information from, like quick writes at the beginning of the class. And the kids would be comfortable enough to share even personal information, not, so deep that I had to involve counselors or anything like that, but to the point where they knew that I was genuinely interested in who they were as people. And I think that made a really, really huge difference.
Yes, yes. No, I think that definitely does make a difference when you take the time to listen and to show empathy with a student. That is so helpful because a lot of students come in with so much trauma and it looks like, oh, they're being defiant or they're being disrespectful or that they just don't want to do something when in essence, what you did was, hey, I know that you just don't come to school to just want to sleep and you don't just do this. And so there's a why behind it. And so when you were curious and you were genuinely curious about why something was happening, then you were able to build that relationship with them that said, hey, this is what's going on that no one else ever knew. It's not that I'm being disrespectful and I don't want to listen to you in your class and I just choose to sleep, but it's because, hey, maybe I had to get up to babysit, or maybe I had these other things, or my parents have to ride the bus and I had to get up at 4 in order to get to school because we live so far. And so that is great. I definitely think that listening and having genuine just concern and curiosity with students, that does help. It does the world for them because they know someone else cares.
Right. One of my favorite things now is to run into former students. Like that brings me so much excitement. It brings me so much excitement and joy. And the fact that, they see me and you can see the excitement on their face too. So that way, even though I'm not in the classroom with them anymore, I know that I made a significant impact on their lives. And to me, that is very fulfilling because, I was more concerned about relationships than I was data, which, there's a balance there, and everybody's different, but my personality and me being a social worker, I definitely thought that it was important to build the relationships first. And then once I built the relationships, I was able to figure out where the deficits were, not necessarily by looking at a sheet of paper that has green and yellow and red, but looking at the child and saying, okay, let me talk to them about this particular area of their life. Then they're more willing to listen to me when I'm saying, okay, how can I help you with this yellow and red over here? Mm-hmm. And that made a significant difference. And, one of the things that I noticed is, like with my own children, I parented a little bit different from the parents that I was working with in the school. So the advice that I gave them was based on experience that I had with my own children. So I was able to say, I've been through this stage. Here's what I did. Because like I said, I taught middle school. I don't know if I mentioned that before. I taught middle school. So at the time that I started teaching, my kids were in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade. So I had already passed the stage where my kids, where the parents were. So I was like, I've been here before. Let me help you out with this.
That's so good. So you could really, I think from everything I'm hearing from you is that who you are as the self, your identity, who you are, helped you find your strength to and figure out these challenges. So it, you know, all the journey that you've been through allowed you to have the unique perspective, allowed you to engage a little bit differently with kids and with their families to support them. And, you know, we've talked about some skills that you've used with in the classroom where you're engaging with them, coming up with more creative ways to connect with them, even related to their schoolwork, but also related to just who they are as individuals. What kind of skills and strategies would you recommend for teachers to take care of themselves? That real self-care, you know, to find some work-life balance, that kind of stuff. What kind of skills do you recommend?
Knowing how to create boundaries would be number one. In order to have work-life balance, you have to determine what time you have for work and what time you have for life. You know, and then have a cutoff. And, you know, like my daughter's a teacher. She's a first-year teacher. She's also teaching middle school. And this past Friday, I called her on FaceTime and she was sitting in her car and it was about 5:30. And I could tell something was, you know, she was in a thought process mode just by the look on her face. And I was like, what's going on? And she said, I got this email saying that a parent reached out to us and haven't been able to contact us, but I've been in contact with the dad, but I haven't been in contact with the mom. And this is specifically saying the mom, but I've done this. And she was kind of, you know, getting ready to go on one of her rants. And, you know, because she was like feeling obligated to respond. And so I kind of caught her before she got on that uptick. And I said, what time was that email sent? She said about 5:05. I said, what is the end of your contracted hours? She said 4:15. I said, go home. You're already in your car. Go home, respond on Monday. And she was like, oh, thank you so much, you know? But that boundary,
yes,
it makes a significant difference. Like I stayed late, I went in early too, but you have to know when to cut it off, especially on a Friday afternoon, especially if you're a teacher and a parent. You have to be able to give the same energy that you put out during the day to yourself and to your family. So figuring out those boundaries is absolutely necessary. Like, I'll be honest, I used to get a little bit ticked off when I would see teachers who I know had children at home, especially young children, and they're in the building at like 7 or 8 o'clock at night. My situation was different. I had teenage children who were in their own sports and clubs and everything else. You know, as a matter of fact, as part of my self-care, once my kids were old enough to drive, they drove themselves to school and I was only 2 miles from work. I walked to work. That was part of my physical self-care. That was part of my alone time. And so by the time it's about 2.5 miles. And that made a huge difference for me. On the days I didn't walk to work, I could tell the difference in my mental state, in my attitude on the days that I didn't walk. And that was one of the compromises that we made as a family, and it seemed to work. So you got to find those areas in your life where it's like, okay, I need to make sure that I'm moving. I need to make sure that I'm getting enough sleep. Spending time with my family and spending time with my friends. And it's also important to have friends at work. So you gotta determine what those boundaries are and then make the right adjustments to figure out what's gonna fit and work for you as an educator.
that is so true. I mean, I think that's one that we all could take a piece of and just say, okay, let's put that in the little toolkit of you need to have work-life balance. You need to cut off the emails, yes, because you will have people that will send emails at a later time. And then especially if emails are coming to your phone, I know for me, I have said, you know what? I am not having emails come to my phone because the temptation is too much there to say, oh, I see it. I feel obligated to respond to it. even if it's late. And so, you know, having those boundaries of saying, you know what, let's just take them off so then I won't have that temptation. And then I have no choice but to wait until we get to like Monday or the next day. Of course, you know, unless it's a crisis or something, but just making sure that you do have those boundaries, because if not, if work is all day, then by the time you go to sleep and you get ready for work again, now you're in a place to where you're like, oh, all right, I have to get ready for work. You don't love it. That passion,
Right.
being a teacher, you're a teacher because you had that passion. But if you're doing that all day, then you have burnout and you lose that. And so that
Right.
is great to let people know, yes, have that balance. And that was great that you told your daughter it was at 5:05, you're done at 4:30. It is time to go home. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, I think where you started at the very beginning, you said like you have to know what your balance needs to be though. Like I
Mhm.
think that it's really easy for us to be like, I've got to have self-care, I've got to have work-life balance, it's got to look this way. We have a fantasy or an ideal of what it's going to be like. And but when we know as clinicians, when you get down to it, you have to be very basic at the beginning. You really have to say like, okay, my hours are from 9 to 5 or 7:30 to 4:15, whatever your hours are, identify them and say, in this time period, I'm going to focus fully on,
Mhm.
that's where I can really be focused. That's where I'm plugged in. That's where I'm tuned in. When that last bell rings and I'm done with everything I needed to get done with at 4:15, I'm going to walk to my car and I'm going to do the things that I need to kind of let go of those.
Yes.
For me, we have keys at our office that almost everybody has this black lanyard, the same black lanyard in our keys. And I wear them around my neck all day. When I get into my car, first thing I do before I put the key in the ignition is take my keys off and I throw them in the cup holder, because I'm no longer Miss at Odyssey. I'm Elise and I'm going home. I'm going to listen to my podcast. I'm going to listen to some music, whatever I'm going to do. But that's
Mhm.
my, I guess like taking off the hat, taking off,
Yes.
and that's my signal to myself physically, and
Mhm.
that, this is where that time ends. So I think it's really important that you said like, first you got to know what you've got to do, and if you
Yes.
have kids, if you have, a lot of people are caretakers for not only their children, but sometimes parents and other family members as well. Whatever those things are, identifying like, okay, here's kind of what I know I have to get done every day that, I need to be mindful of. And then you can go fully in on those time periods. So I think just writing it out at first is vitally important. Sometimes we skip that step. We just like start listing it in our head. Like, no, it's important to write it out.
Yes,
Even
you can see it.
Yep.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
one of the recommendations I make all the time, is to tell people to write things out. Like, you literally do a brain dump. Like, what
Yes.
do you want? How do you see your life? Because then you can see it. I'm like, just put it all on paper. It doesn't have to be in any kind of order. Sort it out later. But then you get it out of your head, because as long as it's in your head, it just keeps cycling and cycling, and you feel like you're not accomplishing anything. But if you get it on paper, then you can check things off if it's something that goes on a checklist, like, hey, this is what I accomplished. But you have to know what it is that your responsibilities are. You have to know that part of your responsibility is making sure you are taking care of yourself,
Yes.
because you can't take care of anyone else unless you're being taken care of.
Mhm.
That means making sure that you're not working well into the night. Go to bed. Get some rest. It does mean making sure that you have friends to hang out with, talk to about things that have nothing to do with work. That one of the issues that I go out with people, especially if they're educators, and I'm like, y'all don't have nothing else to talk about other than what's happening at work. Stop doing that. Talk to your work friends about work stuff. Not saying don't, get it out once you're out of work or out of school. But that be the all of your conversation. There are other exciting things to talk about and other opportunities. That's something else that I always emphasize is making sure that you have the right people in your life. Those people who can be there to laugh and cry with you, but you got to know who is who to you. Everybody can't serve the same purpose in your life. So you have to know who's going to support you in what. Like I have even now, I have one particular friend, one of her roles is to be able to me to celebrate my accomplishments because I'm not that great at it. And I know I'm not that great at it. Saying, hey, did you get it done? And saying, hey, did you by ourselves and being respected by others as well.
Okay, we had a little bit of a lag, so I believe
Yes.
said, I just want to reiterate it because I think it's really important that you have one friend in your life whose role is to remind you to celebrate your accomplishments and
Yes.
like enjoy the journey and the process because that's something that you struggle with.
Right.
Okay. I want to make sure because I could hear part of it. I was like, oh, sounds really good.
No, it's like it's great.
So I think what I've heard from everything you've said is being who you are, acknowledge who you are, be intentional with your time and your energy and your connections. And that little bit of intentionality, once you start to set it up, kind of feeds itself. It's not something you have to be intense about the whole time. I think you know, these skills that you're talking about, once you start it and get it going a little bit, it just all of a sudden kind of takes it on because you start to feel the boundaries, learn them, and start to know them internally. You know, like, oh no, it's 4:15, I'm done for the day, you know, or oh nope, I'm not getting emails on my phone. I turn off the notifications or whatever it is. And so you're used to it. And so I think a lot of times when we've talked about anxiety before, we fear not having the information or we fear the boundary is going to do, how it's going to impact our work life, how it's going to impact our ability to get things done. But what I'm hearing from you and what I've seen myself is that once you do set these things up and you get used to it and the other people around you get used to it, it actually, you start functioning much better. But you do have wiggle time of like, it's a little uncomfortable. It's outside your comfort zone. You don't, no teacher wants to say like, I'm sorry, I can't help you today. Like
Yes.
social workers, people in helping professions and people who are really engaged that way and who function that way, that's really hard for them to say like, I'm sorry, it's 4:15. Like, you know, it seems silly, but we all laughed at it as soon as they said it. Like, yeah, knowing like that needs to say that. And it sets it up so that you can keep doing it for longer. So you don't get burned out, so that you can be available on Monday morning at 8 o'clock when the kids walk in the room. You know, that's so important. So we're towards the end of our time here. So I want to ask Erica, what do you want teachers and school staff who are listening or watching our video, what key thing do you want to share with them before we close out for today?
I think it's really good for educators to be aware of where they are currently with their mental health, physical health, emotional health. There's a lot of teachers right now, and not just teachers, but because we're kind of in that space right now, who are facing just as much anxiety as the kids that they're working with. And you got to kind of take a step back to say, what do I need? What do I need? You know, I know, and because I work with a few of them, teachers that are seeking out their own counseling to have that other person, you know, as one of, you know, I'm part of that relationship of, okay, I have a counselor in place to help me cope with some of these things that I'm dealing with, because it's not just what's happening in the schools, it's what's happening in their personal lives as well that's impacting their mental health, and trying to maintain that particular balance as well. So, you know when or who to have as the right relationships, even if that includes making sure that you're getting counseling. But then also making the adjustments as needed when needed. Like once you do develop a plan, be willing to make the adjustments as needed. Like you don't have to be so committed that that it causes more harm than good.
Yes.
So the biggest things is making sure that you're acknowledging where you are currently and then where you want to be and working toward that, but in a way where you're being
Okay, so I think it went out a little weird again, but basically that last part I think was saying that having a plan, being able to be flexible and creative with it, and not working for you, it's okay to change it.
Yes.
Anything else? Okay, I think that's where it was ending, but I want to make sure that I clarify that. So thank you so much, Erica, for your time today.
Yes.
I want you to share. I'm going to put your website up in our comments as well. But if you'll say, how can people connect with you?
I have 2 pages on Facebook.
Okay.
One is my professional page. It's Erica Inward, and also Teaching with Mental Health in Mind, where it's just providing information and inspiration to educators related to mental health. Just a place where people can say, okay, I know it's not just me that's struggling in this particular area. And then I'm also on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. I talk about self-care regularly, but in a way that kind of goes beyond just self-care, in a way that you have to kind of dig a little bit. So not doing surface self-care that people talk about, like going to get a massage, or, we love those things. But until we deal with some of the things that are literally internal, a massage is not going to do you any good. It's a temporary fix. We need to figure out exactly where the stress is coming from and what's causing it, and then how to reduce that stress. And that is a form of self-care.
Yes. Yes. Okay, great.
Great.
So sure to link all of those things in the comments for everybody so that as they interact with our videos and stuff, that those all of those links you can just click on and go and check out your different pages. And we really thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
You are, we've said this before to other guests, but you are now always a part of the collaborative. You're always a part of this family and this community who is working towards talking about mental health, talking about the importance of community and self-care and work-life balance, all of these things, so that our community can grow in mental health and wellness. That's really our goal and our hope for our community of, individuals, families, parents, teachers, school staff, counselors, social workers, everybody. We welcome everyone in this community. So thank you so much for being a part of this today.
You're welcome, and I genuinely appreciated the invitation. I was grateful to be able to have this conversation with you all. Again, I think that it's happening more. The conversation surrounding mental health is happening more, but I think that we need to keep up the momentum. So you all are doing great work there.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you. So see who's watching. Please like, follow, share, get your friends to like, follow, and share our pages. And if you are anybody that is, would like a place to talk, would like someone to just talk about some work-life balance with, Odyssey Family Counseling Center is available in your community. We're right now operating via telehealth. We work with everybody from 4 on up. So if you're paying attention to this could be for you. Our phone number is 404-762-9190 to schedule an appointment or just to see what options we have available. We have everything from individual, group, family counseling, substance use work, And we have medication management as well as a part of the different services that we offer. You can also check out our website, which is on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, but it's odysseycounseling.org. So if you or someone you know would benefit from that, we highly encourage you and recommend you check us out. And we wish you all the best. Have a great week. And we will see you next week, October 21st, where we will have Alliance for a Healthier Generation come and talk about teacher wellness as well. So thank you guys so much and have a good rest of your
All right, bye.
Bye.